The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Dreyer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we're a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular horror franchises. And today we are talking about Saw 4 from 2007. This was greenlit, I think, the night before Part 3 opened, and they knew that they once again had a hit on their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, John, I don't know if you noticed, but this is the fourth film, and the games are just beginning.
They are just beginning. You thought they were over. They're not.
Man, I love dialogue like that.
Yeah.
The movie is chock full of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this begins, except for the boss man, this begins a new creative team for the next three. And I guess Saw fans consider this as being like a second trilogy, I suppose, with 4, 5, and 6. So this would be the A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi of Saw, if you will. 4, 5, and 6.
Right now, I'd say it's the Last Jedi.
Right.
And I'll get into why a little bit later, but yeah, this represents a sea change in the whole thing.
Are you saying it subverts your expectations?
In some ways, it's in that like it undoes a lot of stuff that's done before. It's funny to kind of realize that even though this is so associated with Leigh Whannell and James Wan, and yes, they were a huge part of this. Darren Lynn Bousman, the big Bousman, has done like the last 3 of these. Well, and he's gone until we get to Spiral, but that this has been largely his thing, his driving vision of this whole thing. Because when they made the first Saw, they weren't expecting sequels. So credit to him. Yeah.
So this is almost more of his franchise than it is Whannell and James Wan. I mean, obviously started it, but he made it what it is, if you will.
Yeah, he needs to be in that conversation if you're talking about it.
But yeah, this brings on a couple of new writers. There are 3 writers on this: Patrick Melton, Marcus Dunston, and Thomas Fenton.
Yes, Dunston checks in.
Yeah, Dunston checks in for Saw Part 4. I did not see a Dunston checks in joke coming into a Saw discussion.
I've been waiting for 2 weeks.
There you have
I've been just laying in wait. Machinations, giant machines going just so I can make this joke.
If you have not seen Dunston checks in, audience, please check it out.
Yeah, it'll help you understand Saw 4 better.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, these 3 guys had, or at least 2 of them had another script that they wanted to create, just like, one of the other Saw films. The boss man was just like, oh, that would make a great Saw origin story.
Yeah.
And you are now hired for Part 4, Part 5, and Part 6. So go ahead and start writing. Oh, and we're not going to give you the Saw Bible, evidently, too. Which is so funny.
Fascinating, because you had joked previously about there being like a show Bible for the whole thing, and there is.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
Shows you how interconnected these whole things are. But the fact that they didn't get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is another case. Their initial script, which was called The Midnight Man, eventually became The Collector.
Oh,
there is a different movie called The Midnight Man, but that's based on a creepypasta. I'm familiar with them. They have a trilogy of films that they worked on called Feast. I watched the first one some time ago, years and years ago, and I never went back because it was not for me. But it was way too like edgelord for me. And the fact that the sequels are called like Sloppy Seconds and The Midnight Finisher or whatever was
God,
not my jam.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, hey, if there's 3, you know what we got to do, but
not watch them.
Not watch them.
Yeah, there needs to be 4.
Right.
No, but it is like and finding that out kind of opened my eyes to the sort of the more sexual nature of this one of Saw 4 compared to the ones past. I think there's a little bit more of that element in this one compared to what we've seen before. Also, those Feast movies directed by Clu Gulager's son.
No, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
John Gulager. And Clu is in the first one.
You get a great name like Clu, and then you just get John. No offense, but
no, but like at the same time, I get it, because if you're just like, I'm tired of explaining my name, what's the dumbest, most boring name I can give to someone? John. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fine. Yeah. You want me to start calling you Clue?
That would be cool. Yeah. Right. Clue Myers.
Clue
C. Myers.
Yeah, I dig it. That's what the C stands for. John Clue Myers.
John Clue Myers.
Thanks for the clue. Anyway. I remember the box cover art to the Feast movies, and and then seeing the titles, the subtitles, and had the same experience of like, I don't think those are for me.
Yeah, that was years ago. My taste may have changed. Who knows? But I just remember kind of feeling disappointed in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also funny that they had, this is again, after Boss Man with Saw 2, you have this multi-million-dollar franchise that's going on, right? It's making tons and tons of money, but they're still like, hey, rather than pay someone to write a new script, what if we just use this old script? Like, come on, you're making a ton of money. But
I think that has to do more with the calendar, where they're just like,
true.
we have got to film and edit this in 1 year. This has to be butts and seats in a year. So they're probably like, we don't have time to write a script. Yeah. Shout out to the WGA, who's about ready to go on strike and all of that. So maybe think about that.
And then allegedly that this script happened and they wanted to do, Jigsaw Origins, but then producers were like, no, we don't want to do an origin story. And so they went, okay, well, we'll make a new one that is just full of flashbacks and make it basically an origin story.
And we'll get to it later, but like usually I tend to agree with you in that I don't need origin stories for my villains most of the time because it takes the mystery away. But I did kind of enjoy watching Tobin Bell with a reel-to-reel recorder, like recording himself and pitching his voice down and stuff like that. That was kind of cool.
Well, watching the early Jigsaw stuff was cool, but what they've done with his backstory, I think, undercuts some of what they've done before.
So getting into this, we open on a really, really gross hospital room because, of course, we do. Even the places that are supposed to be pristine, clean, wiped down, gross. Still green gross. Lighting, still gross.
Although I do think it is nicer looking than 3. I think they actually like got rid of some of the more like super high contrast stuff, and it's a little bit like, it's the same cinematographer. And that's actually, I listened to an interview with Darren Lynn Bousman, and part of the reasons he wanted to exit this series was just kind of creatively getting tired of it, but also knowing that everyone that's working on this film is going to come and work on the next one, and they all know what they're doing. You don't need me here. That these are all, these people live and breathe Saw. They know it. So it's
this is fine. Truly a machine.
Who's ever running this. But this is the first one that doesn't open with a trap.
Yes.
It's just in a morgue.
Right. And not a sandwich in sight.
No.
Not a sandwich in sight in this morgue. And I was, that's my first criticism.
Yeah. Of the film. One's eating. Although if you there is a version available online, because this whole first thing is they're doing an autopsy on Jigsaw so that he's dead. Right. There's a part where they weigh his brain.
Okay.
And there's a version online. It's called, let me look this up real quick. It's called Saw 4 International. In the scene, there's this shot after the guy walks away, like he's got the brain, and he's walking in the background, and you can hear a voice that sounds suspiciously like it was me dubbing it in, going, I can't wait to eat this brain. So look for that. You can find the true version of this movie.
Version.
Yeah.
I'll post the link in the show notes, and everybody can check out the brain eating cut.
The International.
The International.
All coroners must be eating at all times. It's
exactly.
Which I guess would maybe make this more of a crime movie than a horror movie.
Oh, sure. So we do, for what it's worth, this autopsy scene is pretty great. It looks gnarly, and I guess they took a solid 2 weeks just to build the model of Tobin Bell. It looks like Tobin Bell just laying on a slab. Yeah, so hats off.
At this point, it was the most expensive prop. And
that makes sense.
It is very well done.
I do like that they didn't even bother to try to fake around this. They're like, no, we're going to open up Tobin Bell's head. We're going to open up his chest.
Yeah.
Tobin Bell as Jigsaw is dead.
There is no question about it. Yeah.
I don't remember the later movies. Maybe there is a magical creature that puts them all back together. I don't know.
Twin. Yeah.
Yes. Now he is literally a Jigsaw being put back together. I don't know. After an autopsy. Anyway, I did laugh because when they take out his stomach, what's inside the stomach? A tape.
A tape. As you predicted.
As I just kind of offhanded jokes in the last episode. Like, does he swallow it? Yoink. Yeah, they really did that. And he, what was it encased in? Like amber or wax? Wax.
Yeah.
Amber, like Jurassic Park.
You put it in a tree for a bit. Honestly, it was growing next to his hospital bed.
Gonna grow Billy clones all over the place. But so yeah, there's a tape inside, and it plays, and so John now says,
I promise that my work will continue. You think it's over just because I'm dead. It's not over. The games have just begun.
And it's all for a detective guy.
Yeah, Detective Hoffman, played by Costas Mandalore, which we saw briefly in Saw 3.
Cut to a mausoleum, and I immediately wanted to be watching Phantasm.
Yep.
When I saw this set.
I got very excited.
Yes. Is Reggie going to come running around the corner and save the day with a 4-barrel?
You have not sold enough ice cream. I want to play a game.
Exactly. So there are 2 guys that are chained to some sort of contraption in the middle of the room. One guy's mouth is sewn shut. The other guy's eyes are sewn shut, so they cannot communicate at all. The machine in the middle starts cranking them towards each other, and there are bladed weapons just strewn around the floor, right? Mm-hmm. Just like as if somebody overturned a satchel and just a whole bunch of small bladed weapons spill out.
Yeah, it's a Double Dragon level.
They start stabbing at each other. It's pretty brutal. One guy, mouth guy, gets the upper hand and beats eye guy over the head with some sort of contraption, kills him, and manages to get a key and unlock himself. I do like how the scene ends, though, with him tearing out his own stitches and screaming in victory.
Yeah.
That was effective.
Yeah, which, I mean, at the one hand, it's like, well, you could have done that before. You know?
Exactly.
But,
yeah.
But it's also, and this is something I realize, it's these, horror movies generally are built on people making bad decisions.
Sure.
But like, you have so many things to jam up the gears of this thing.
Yeah.
Like it was very, and this happens a couple of times in this one where it's like, this is, and maybe it's just I played too many video games. So this just seems obvious to me about like just put something in the gears to stop it. But it is still it's a neat contraption. And I like that they build these things to actually work. And so you get to see the gears move and stuff like that. And yeah, this little sort of parable about communication. And it took me a while to figure out, that's the lawyer. Like I didn't.
I barely even got it, and I couldn't. I'd like to believe I'm a fairly perceptive movie watcher, but at the same time, I still will often just blame myself, and it's not because I'm like looking at my phone or something like that, because I really try not to do that when watching movies. But I'm still just like, am I getting dumber? Am I becoming like, do I have the Simpson gene? Am I getting dumber as I get older type of thing?
I think I just got too caught up in other things that when it was like, oh yeah, that happened. I kind of forgot. So
sure. We cut to a SWAT team trying to break in a building. They use a little robot with a camera, which I thought was kind of fun. And the camera rolls in to see a girl, and she's chained up. And so how would you describe this? So she's dead.
Yes.
All of her body is like slashed up somehow, and just a cherry on top, there's a rat that burrows its way out of her body.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Dina Meyer, the actress Dina Meyer from the last movie. After the sort of the angel trap.
Yeah.
They're coming on her body, and so all her flesh has been torn off, revealing her innards. This messes around with the timeline a bit in a way that left me. It wasn't until like a subsequent viewing that I kind of was like, okay, now this makes a little bit more sense. Although I still think that introduces some issues that we'll get to.
The FBI shows up, and they debate over who did this. Was it Jigsaw? Was it Amanda Young? And the agent says...
Detective Carey weighed approximately 130 pounds. Amanda Young's arrest report has her at 107. She couldn't get her up there alone.
John Kramer was...
Bedridden cancer patient. He's brains, not brawn.
He was also an engineer. He could have rigged pulleys.
Or someone else could have helped him.
John, did you see any door kicking in this scene? Like, did someone kick down a door and it kind of frustrated you, enraged you? Yeah. I cannot believe the level of door kicking. I hope that there's some comeuppance and somebody like kind of gets this guy. You know,
doors everywhere. But I also like, so this is Riggs. I'm sorry, just Rig.
Rig, not Riggs and Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon.
just Rig, who is the SWAT team guy who we previously saw in 2 and had a bit part in 3. Yeah, he is chastised by Detective Hoffman for recklessly entering the scene.
Are you trying to get yourself killed? You know never to go through an unsecured door, ever.
Thought she was still alive. Thought I could save her.
Yeah, after 2? Like, if for nothing else, it's just after 2 that you just like, yeah, let's go into this electrified fence and just get ourselves messed up.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me about this is, it introduces this, and I think is a very valid point of like, hey, Amanda was a smaller person. How did she get Detective Carey up in this contraption?
Yeah.
But what's bothering me, and the movie doesn't really fully answer this, how do they know Amanda's involved?
Oh, at this point. So if we're backing up to... this happens concurrently with part 3.
With part 3. So let's just get that out of the way. We've got the big reveal at the end. This has happened concurrently with part 3. So we know at the end of part 2 that Amanda was in the house and like disappeared.
Sure.
We don't know what happened to her. We don't know that she's responsible for Donnie Wahlberg's disappearance. We just know that he's gone. But somehow they're all able to put together that Amanda is involved. And that was something that was bothering me throughout it. It's like, well, wait a minute. How did they figure this out? Because I got confused by the timeline. And then when it was revealed what the timeline actually was, it didn't answer some of my questions.
Exactly.
Doesn't, for the purposes of all this thing, doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter.
But it was interesting that like you're just, I think it's like is a way to clumsily set up that there's likely other accomplices.
Yeah, if you need to establish early on in this sequel that there is another accomplice.
Yeah.
That's the main mystery. That's the thing that you want to get to right away. So I guess you just have to hand wave the Amanda part out of the way.
If you said like, well, we don't know where Amanda is. Do you think it should have been Chip? You could have done the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the challenge of making this 4th movie while trying to do the magic trick of saying that this happens concurrently,
right?
Even though we've already seen
and not having the Saw Bible as it was.
There you go. Yeah.
As a quick aside, I listened to an interview with Darren Lynn Bousman, where he was talking about that there was a big like Saw message board. This was before the days of social media really being a thing, called like House of Jigsaw or something. I forget what it was now. They were so obsessive about it. And they would just like look for any inconsistency or whatever, to the point that like, oh, well, if you look at the bathroom in 3, the tiling pattern is different than 1.
Wow.
Which, I mean, that's the itchy and scratchy joke. You hit the same rib twice.
Right.
And they would actually mess with them and be like, no, that's something they didn't find yet. Which I think is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it got me thinking about the way that fandom interacts with the films interact with fandom now, because you could just be like, look, these weirdos are over here and we never have to hear from them. Whereas this is much more of a thing. So Bousman said that a lot of this actually came from that they were sort of listening to what the fans wanted in some of this stuff, or like these concerns they had, and tried to tie that together a bit.
Yeah, that can go one of 2 ways, really.
Yeah, so I'm just bummed I wasn't on the message board to be like, how do they know Amanda was involved?
Yeah, and why does it have to be a pig mask? Why not a sheep?
Yeah, technically, does that make sense?
The whole conceit of the film is who's the other accomplice that's been helping out this entire time. We realize at this point, John Kramer's famous now. He's on the cover of psychological books. He's on the cover of magazines and stuff like that. So again, how does the timeline of this kind of click together?
Yeah, so they know it's him, and so that makes some sense, because you eventually find out that Carrie was only missing for 4 days, they say. So that's your tip already that this is concurrent with 3.
Right.
Donnie Wahlberg's character has been missing for 6 months. Rig is obsessed over this and is watching a interrogation tape. What you learn later is Jigsaw's ex-wife.
Right.
And he's looking at magazines that are all like, it's like Serial Killer Quarterly or something like that. It's like, Jigsaw, what's he about? It's called like Cultures or something.
Yes,
and like it's got this very like artistic photo of him.
Yes.
And then there's a photo of him on the cover of like Civil Engineering magazine or something like that, which is like, well, was that before he was Jigsaw, or was that because like, hey, we got to admit this guy did some good civil engineering.
Yeah. What about the good things he did?
Yeah, let's say murders, but those were some well put together gears.
Right.
Yeah, but I just like that it was like Natural Born Killers, where there's the whole like Time magazine featuring them.
Sure, yeah. So Officer Rigg is just talking about how everyone around him keeps dying. He gets home. His wife needs to go help her mom, I guess, and he just decides not to go. Is that right?
Basically.
So like they don't really kind of expand on that. Is he just like, I'm too busy tracking Jigsaw to help you with your mom?
They start setting up that Rig is very obsessed with his job.
You know what that means?
Yeah, that's bad. Unless your job is putting people in traps. Hoffman's like, hey, buddy, you're hitting this too hard. You're supposed to be on vacation. He's like, my wife understands. He's like, well, then don't take her for granted and go home. Goes home, and the wife is packing up, and there's a note. And he's like, oh, no, what's this say? And she's like, the dinner's in the fridge, and I'm leaving. But then she says, like, I'm going to my mom's for a few days. Like, you need to calm down. You can't save everyone. Relax. And, like, we have remodeling to do. Work on that. And then she fucks off. Starting to push this thing with Rig that he can't give up the job and that he's got to save everybody. Even though we have seen him not save several SWAT members from getting electrocuted and hit by stairs.
Yes.
But yes.
He needs to save everyone. He needs to burst into rooms. He needs to kick down doors.
He needs to absolutely,
save anybody who is behind a closed door. That's his absolute mission.
Yeah.
He promptly gets kidnapped by Pig Mask.
Waste no time.
Yes. See, a man just can't survive without the wife in the house. Am I right?
Yeah.
You know, like he can't cook for himself. He can't clean. He can't fend off a Pig Mask kidnapper.
Yeah.
You know,
my partner leaves. It's day 2. I'm eating peanut butter just out of the jar for lunch. This guy just gets kidnapped. It's just not happening.
Just cannot fend for himself. He wakes up in a bathtub. Of course, Billy appears on the TV and shows Matthews, Donnie Wahlberg, is still alive, but hanging from his neck. And he's trying to stand on a block of melting ice. And Rig has 90 minutes to save him. Now, originally, Donnie Wahlberg's schedule wouldn't allow him to be in the movie. And so they decided that they were going to use Rig's wife as the bait. But then all of a sudden, Donnie Wahlberg became available and they're like, let's just put him back in there and film him for maybe a day, just slipping around on an
I
ice
can't
cube.
imagine it took that long. Yeah.
Right. So Rig's motivation went from rescuing his wife to rescuing an old partner, an old colleague. Not saying that you can't love who you work with, but it is kind of a funny difference in motivations for our hero here.
Yeah, we find out that Matthews is in a trap along with Hoffman, who's also been apparently kidnapped. Well, the trap is eventually revealed. We'll get to that. But all he knows right now is that gotta go get that guy. Yeah. This is the introduction to his first test.
Yes.
Which is something else. I like this trap, but it was also kind of maddening. He's like leaves the bathroom and because he's still in his house.
I was wondering about this too. Yeah. Is it a relax, you're in your own room? Space mutiny joke?
Yeah. No, but it seemed like whoever knocked him out or the Pig Mask set some stuff up because there's all these photos up everywhere of this blonde woman. He goes into the room and there's someone in the Pig Mask and a hood in front of a television. Whips off you can hear someone struggling underneath. He's trying to hey, don't move. Pulls off the wig mask or the mask, and it's a blonde woman whose hair is connected to this whole contraption. Yeah. And in whipping off the robe and the mask, starts it in action, starts pulling her hair back to pull her scalp off. Ugh. So he's trying to figure out how to stop it. She's just cut the hair, because I was screaming at the TV, just cut the hair.
Exactly.
He goes to the kitchen. Of course, the knives are all gone. But again, this was a case of you could just jam anything at hand into the gears. Yes. You have a gun. Put the gun in there. It doesn't matter. Right. But particularly if your whole thing is saving everyone. But he eventually is able to stop it because he finds you have to have a code that shows up on some of the turning gears and stuff. But not before a fair amount of blood is spilled. Of course. Frees her, but then she reaches under the TV and gets a knife and starts attacking him. Puts her down to find that there was a tape from Jigsaw instructing her to do just that. Because she is a sex worker who was going to be arrested by Rig if she did not kill him. That's what Jigsaw told her. That's what Jigsaw said. So she's some kind of she's like a pimp, basically. They reference later. She was putting this stuff forward. And this bothered me a little bit in that it's not unheard of for Jigsaw to expect a lot of things in order for these traps to work. Right. But you had someone, and to be fair, this person knows only what's being told to them from the tape. But this is a person that's well, my scalp's about to be pulled off. I might be hey, were you in on this?
Yeah.
Where did I not get you? But you got your adrenaline's going, whatever.
Right.
So she just attacks him, like knowing full well, or like who even is this guy? How is he going to prosecute her? Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think here there's a writing on the wall that says like, see what I see.
Which is important, I suppose, for later on.
This whole journey.
He can't help but try to save her. He does not.
No.
We cut to Matthews hanging by his throat still, trying to stand on the ice. He's got a little booty on his leg now because he lost his foot in the previous
his foot
movie.
Is broken to shit. Yeah.
We flash back to him fighting with Amanda and then placed in his cell, just in case we didn't know who this guy was, because he does have a pretty terrible beard.
He does have a pretty terrible, but I also like when he is found after his fight with Amanda and like drugged to the cell, whoever is dragging him to the cell is wearing a hood. I was like, well, I better wear this hood in case there's a flashback. Yeah. Because he knows who's involved with this pretty much.
True.
So
yeah.
Obviously, we'll find out later who perhaps was already in that thing, but it was just kind of funny that like, oh, I better be ready just in case this guy I'm planning to murder and keep in a cell figures out it's me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He could use it against me somehow.
Yeah, it's sort of like, and if Jigsaw is as sure about his stuff as he is, it's a little bit of a suspenders and belt kind of situation. Like,
oh, sure.
You're kind of overdoing it.
SWAT team gets to the crime scene. They check out all the photos that were there. They try to put all the connections to the other people who Jigsaw is targeting here. We get a list of names or other people. It's a little confusing. They zoom in on all these different people in there. They come up with like three people that also targeting.
Because you have the pimp / prostitute that we've already talked about. You have Hoffman. You have what we find out, Jigsaw's wife, Matthews, and I think then I believe the lawyer also.
Right, the lawyer.
Yeah,
yes.
But there's a few different ones that we're introduced to.
So we cut back now to Jigsaw's ex-wife. Her name is Jill. Jill, getting interrogated, is really defensive and exhausted by it because she's saying like, you're not going to learn anything that you haven't learned through like 100 hours of questioning
it's been
of me.
6 months. You've talked to me a billion times.
And we get several scenes of her getting interrogated and somebody yelling at her over and over, which gets a little redundant, I thought.
Yeah.
Rig goes to a shitty hotel. He's got a room key, and inside is a photo of his wife and a suitcase and a pig mask with a tape recorder.
Well, this got me. This was might be actually one of my favorite scenes in it because he walks in and there's a suitcase with some hair sticking out and the photo of his wife on the top. And it's like this black hair, and you're like, oh my God, what's in the box, man? What's in the box? And it's the pig mask. But I thought that was very
really well done. Because I had the same reaction. I was like, can you fit a whole body in there? I was like, well, maybe if you carve it up first, you can fit it inside of a suitcase. Yeah.
But this is you, and as well in there is the photo of the creepy guy running the motel. Your classic, creepy motel clerk, greasy motel clerk, straight out of like Basket Case.
Yes,
but no, he is. His name is Ivan. He's a giant creep. We find, and that Jigsaw leaves a recording that's like, "Hey,
the photo before you is of a man in desperate need of help. In the next room are the tools to his salvation. His life is in your hands, but in the end, only he can save himself.
You're gonna need to. This room is being monitored, so you need to wear a mask while you do it. So put on the pig mask.
Yeah, hide your identity. Why?
Doesn't really last that long. Like he takes it off almost immediately, but
immediately,
okay, whatever.
Yeah. Desk clerk walks upstairs and he gets a gun pulled on him by Rig and makes him walk into the hotel room. Flashback to working in a medical clinic. This is Jill, Jigsaw's ex-wife.
Yes.
There's a pointless fight in the lobby of the hospital. And now the detective is just really trying to push the idea that Jill is the current accomplice. So it's supposed to be our red herring as well. Flashback to John showing off some of his creepy early workshop. And you get to see Billy the puppet, and a cradle.
Because she is pregnant. And this, I was losing my mind because when he's showing her around, he's like, well, check this out. And because it's a flashback, I was like, you made the puppet younger? because he's got like
I
a beat 'em up
thought so
top
too.
head. I'm like,
Yes.
that's not how puppets work. Unless this is like some kind of Benjamin button puppet. I don't,
Benjamin Buppet.
Benjamin Buppet. But like, yeah, I was losing it because I'm like, you bothered to de-age the puppet, but no, it's a slightly different puppet, which seemed very weird to bring in.
Right. This was a first model, but it did look younger.
Yeah. This is the first indication that they're taking Jigsaw. Like we've talked a lot about Jigsaw's sort of ethos and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Jigsaw in this one, they've decided to make really reactionary, like Death Wish, like Charles Bronson in Death Wish.
Yes. Yeah.
And the whole thing that his wife used to run this like clinic for at-risk people.
Underprivileged people.
Yeah.
And
their motto was cherish your life. And it's basically the whole there's that phrase like scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds. It's like, because this doesn't go exactly the way he wants it to, that all mankind is bad and I need to punish them. And when that starts happening, I'll get into a little bit more of that then. But I thought that was like an interesting change. This is kind of why I call it the Rian Johnson or the Last Jedi of
sure,
because it kind of like changes a lot of things from what you knew before. It kind of recontextualizes some stuff, which I don't, much like The Last Jedi, I don't think always works.
Yes.
But yeah, so they're trying to set this up that like they have this more history with that. And the fact that they're showing like, well, they have this clinic and immediately there's problems because there's some guy that's freaking out. And the only other solution the other guy has is to punch him in the face instead of talking about
Of course.
These people can't really be helped unless you tie them to machines. But yeah, so we're getting a little bit of that. But the real headline here is the de-aged puppet. And it took me a bit to get back in the movie because I was too busy thinking about how you made a younger puppet and then, but even if the reality of it is like, well, I made this puppet older or like more fucked up. So you gave him receding hairline? Like, it's an extremely bizarre choice overall.
Yeah. And do we think that the puppet is for their unborn child to play with? Because it's like, it's in the context of showing her like a bassinet and cradle. And it's just like, oh, here's Billy the puppet. See, Becky, I told you the puppet was cute. And here's an earlier version of it that was going to be a children's toy. See?
Vindicated
It tracks.
It was, I don't know. It seemed weird to be like, look, I made this really awful wooden thing to put in with our baby. It's Jigsaw for you.
Cut back to Rig holding the clerk hostage. He pushes him into an adjoining room where there are photos of a sex worker who's been beaten up and tied to a bed. And of course, another Jigsaw tape. There's also video footage of the hotel clerk assaulting the woman on the bed. And now, I mean, I did kind of dig this part because, from as much of the context of I don't want to see like why this guy's bad, I don't need to see close-up shots of a woman's, bruised face and stuff like that. The trap was pretty cool because it makes it like Rig just straps him to a bed. I can't remember what he says to him exactly, but he's just like, you have the ability to either lose your eyes or lose your body.
Jigsaw's instruction to Rig is like, tie him to the bed, get him in there. As an instruction is like basically that you've kept these photos around and look at them. And then like, so your voyeuristic nature got you into trouble, but then your body is the thing that committed these crimes and hurt other people. It's odd that he's kind of saying that like, well, you looked at pornography and that got you. And I realized that he's kind of referring to these photos of the brutalized people, but he wouldn't have the photos of the brutalized people if he didn't brutalize them. So it's kind of going like the fact that you were looking at and had sexual thoughts about someone is equally as bad as actually like assaulting people. Yeah. And I'm with you. Like, I didn't need to see that little bit. And that's when I was talking earlier about the feast thing, like adding that this has a lot more of a sexual element to it. Yeah. And including what the next people that he comes in contact with, that the crimes have a lot more sort of like sex crime thing to it, rather than just like being a bad dad or doing drugs.
Working too hard.
Right. Or working the crime of grinding. Yeah. So it's like, so your choices are you're strapped to this bed. Either your body will just be pulled apart or you can press these buttons. It almost looks like he gives him an e-reader. Not the e-reader. What do they call those things that Scientology uses? The
e-meter, the
e-meter. Yeah.
E-meter. Yeah.
It gives him an e-meter in each hand. And is like, if you press these buttons, your eyes will get poked out. You can get rid of your voyeuristic tendencies or the body that doesn't. And so the guy wastes no time And he's like, bye bye eyes. he clicks one and goes in. It's disgusting, but
it's terrible.
But I like that he's like, okay, did that one. We can do the next one. Like he's just pumping himself up.
He's pumping himself up. Yeah.
And then he does it. And then his body gets torn apart anyway.
Right. Which he gets drawn and quartered.
Yeah. Essentially like, and it's gnarly. And I couldn't help but think, okay, so is this an Amanda trap? Is this another example of Jigsaw having this idea, but then the person that set it up like fucked it up because screw them? Because if you're trying to teach this guy, like, no, we need to let them save themselves. Yeah, that's not how that worked at all.
Right.
But whatever.
This is not the no-win situation Kobayashi Maru test.
Right. Yeah.
But,
it was a cool trap, but I don't know that it did what you needed it to do.
More interrogation, flashbacks, aggro patient from earlier, I believe his name is Cecil, threatens his way back into where Jill works. He pushes the door really hard, slams into her stomach, abdomen, causes her to start bleeding, which is movie sign for they've lost the baby already. Yes. John Kramer finds her, runs her into the emergency room, and demands that everybody try to save his wife's life, and that she is also pregnant.
While that's happening, he's outside waiting for her in the car, and like a sex worker shows up. He's like, "You're a pretty lady. This is a health clinic. Get out of here."
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks.
And that was it, right?
Yeah, it's just another way to him to be disgusted with the world around him. And this Cecil guy, like not on purpose, but does in attempting to rob the place, cause her to miscarry. And she even has a line in when she's leaving the hospital, she's like,
all I wanted to do was help them.
Okay, like that didn't undercut all of your other work. Like that's still possible. But he's like, they can only help themselves, which, and part of the reason I find this whole, this element of it so frustrating is that in 2, we find out that he had this cancer diagnosis. And so he decided, and I mean, we knew that from 1, 2, that was part of the impetus of the whole thing was Leigh Whannell being like, what if you were dying? Like, and this insane person would do all this. And the second one's presented that he has this car accident that made him kind of like, well, now I want to test the limits of the human experience. But instead of it being this like baptism of crushed metal and broken glass that caused this rebirth, instead of the rebirth, it's him going, fuck it, YOLO. Like it's him just having this idea and being a piece of shit anyway and being like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to die and fuck these guys. Yeah. And I didn't love that as much as just, I mean, his reasoning before was pretty flawed, but this just felt much more kind of like politically motivated, for lack of a better term. But just like you were just already brooding on this, and that makes it a little bit less interesting of a character rather than just be like, I've seen death and death changed me. It was more like, I hate these people and then they made me hurt. So guess what? Now I'm going to enact my revenge. Because then it makes all the people that he attacks not make a lot of sense, because it went from drug dealer that gave my wife a miscarriage to guy that busts through doors. Yeah. Like, okay.
All right, buddy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the problem when you go further along in a franchise and you feel like you need to give your main person a backstory, which you've already kind of established, but then you want to give it a new wrinkle, and then that undoes some of the cool stuff from the previous.
Well, this one in particular, because this one is so tied together.
Yes.
Compared to any other franchise we've done so far, like the fact that there was a show Bible that's like, okay, then this happens here and this happens here. And you're stuck with some of the downsides of that.
Right. Cut back to the previous kill scene in the hotel room, and I really loved the reaction that one of the detectives has, which was just simply, how do you get all this shit in here?
Yes.
Into the hotel room? How do you get this contraption in here? Which is fantastic, because I think they do have some sort of like dumb excuse, like this room has been rented for like 2 weeks or something. So that means that Amanda or Jigsaw has been lugging stuff in like beam by beam, bolt by bolt, like under a trench coat, like a giant steel beam and blade underneath a trench coat to get in there and rig up this massive contraption. But yeah, that did make me laugh.
Yeah, they bothered to even mention it. But it's also, I doubt that the clerk cared. He was too busy being disgusting.
That's true. Detective thinks that Rig is being recruited by Jigsaw because now it's all about feel how I feel, see what I see. I believe feel what I feel is in the hotel room.
Yes.
Written up there. We cut to Hoffman, back to him just doing his thing, slipping and sliding in a noose. He finally tries to give up and just hang himself, which was pretty great.
Yeah, this drove me nuts. Because Matthews, this is absolutely what I would do. Yes. Matthews is like, you know what, fuck you. And he just hops off the thing. And a person has come in to monitor the situation.
Yes.
He comes over, because what happens if Matthews steps off the ice block? They're on sort of like a seesaw thing. Hoffman, who's sitting tied up to the chair next to him, will tip down into some water, and there's some nearby cables that would basically electrocute him.
Right.
If he goes down there. And the person that's sort of comes in to monitor the whole situation, he's like, no, you can't do that. Okay.
Why? Sure.
Stay here. You know, we'll all get out of this. All three of us will get out of this.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't the first trap that Matthews has been in. And we eventually find out the person who's monitoring the whole thing is the lawyer that we saw previously get out of the other thing. Is like, once you get out of a Jigsaw's trap, I thought the whole thing was it was supposed to, like, that was
you were
supposed
to have learned. You've learned your lesson.
But they've gotten rid of all that pretext now. It's just, no, there's going to be another trap, which I think undercuts the whole thing. I mean, we've talked about before how his philosophy is all kind of flawed or whatever, but I feel like undercutting that whole principle of it was a real misstep.
Yeah. Once you get out now, like, you're involved in somebody else's trap.
Yeah.
You've been called up to the big leagues.
Yeah. Kid, you got the goods.
Yep. You survived. Now I'm going to employ you.
I mean, Amanda at least fucked up again. So we put her back in the trap. And then then we found out the 3 was like, well, you've been kind of not doing what I want. This is your last test. But this is me like, no, I don't care. Your test is not even, it doesn't even matter anymore. But also at this point, there's so many flashbacks. It's easy to get confused here.
Yeah.
And there is no doubt in my mind. Have you ever seen Burn After Reading?
Yes, but only once.
Okay. Jigsaw's making those George Clooney sex chairs. Like, there's no question that's what he's doing in there all day long. Because he's a fucking weirdo. But,
right.
They're looking at the scene where Riggs was just dealing with that guy. Riggs, sorry, I keep saying Riggs.
It's a real hawk and hawk situation here.
But then Riggs moves on to the next test he's encountered, which is this woman. We get a flashback of this case he was on, where this little girl was being abused, and you see him talking to the little girl, and the little girl sees the guy who has been being interrogated, and he looks at her and goes like, shh, no, don't talk. And we find out that the guy was abusing her, and his wife wasn't doing anything about it. Hoffman is there, and Hoffman's like, I can't corroborate the kid's story. It doesn't, I can't do anything about it. Rig ends up punching out the guy, the abuser. He's like, I'll take everything you got. Turns out the abuser is being represented by the lawyer. And by the way, we haven't mentioned this yet, but the lawyer has such a great name.
Oh, I did look that up.
Yeah, it's not the actor is fine, but it's like Art Blank.
Yeah.
Just I just love that name.
That's a good name. Yeah.
Then you get a little bit more of a flashback where the guy later, the lawyer is like, well, we're gonna sue you guys. And whatever. And Costas Mandalore, Hoffman's like, no, your guy doesn't have a case. He struck first. Well, who saw that? Me, I did.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to show you that there's that there's a connection between Hoffman and Rig, that he's got his back. Right. But it's also like, oh, cool. So the cops just lied about. I mean, the guy's a pederast abuser, so it's like it's hard to take his side. But it's just also weird to be like, no, it's good that cops do this.
Yeah. Hey, ends justify the means. Exactly. All that kind of thing.
I mean, that's Saw. Ends justify the means. That is Jigsaw's whole thing.
Exactly.
But he comes across these people, the same couple. Jigsaw has hooked up a trap. And I do like this trap as a concept.
I love this trap.
Where they are on opposite sides of a post and they're pinned together with different, just sharp needles sticking through them. What I don't love, when he encounters them, and this was, I thought this was needlessly confusing, because when Rig encounters them, the trap has already happened. That she's there and she's like, I won. And then you get this flashback, this whole protracted flashback of them being connected with these needles sticking through them, like back to back. And Jigsaw tells her like, hey, you know how you were abused by this guy and who was also like abusing this kid and you did nothing about it because you were being abused? Yeah. Well, that is just as bad as this guy abusing people. So you got to figure out if you want to live or die.
Mm-hmm.
So if one side pulls out the needle, the other side will start to bleed out.
Yes.
And she starts pulling out the needles and causes the guy to die.
Right.
So Jigsaw's whole thing is basically like, the thing is you weren't abused enough and in the right way. But if I do it, you'll learn something.
Yeah. But the placement of the needles / bars is interesting to me because he explains it as in the ones through the woman she can heal from.
Yes.
Like if she removes them. But the ones in the man are so specific that he won't recover from those wounds.
Right.
And it's ridiculous, but I love the idea of him being so medically sound that he was able to just go through at the just right angle to hit her and in one area and him in another one to pull off that level of a trap. And I thought that was pretty ingenious in a really stupid sort of way.
Right. But it was frustrating because you know how it ends. So why am I watching all this?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, you're just like, there's no tension there because I already know, well, she won. So why are we, we're just kind of spinning the wheels here and just, it's a chance to us to watch more gore. And in that interview with Big Boss Man, he said that honestly, the trap's the last thing we come up with. It just says like trap 1 goes here, trap 2. And there might be a little bit more specifics, but yeah. He's like, that kind of gets worked out later, and there are changes that are made like up to the last minute kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I did like the kind of absurdity of that.
Sure.
I think it's here. Oh yeah, because he's like, she wants help, and he's like, well, you got to take out the spikes. Because he's starting to figure out that he's got to save like Jigsaw saves. You know, it's up to them to save themselves. She's like, nope, that's up to you. And he pulls the fire alarm to kind of let people know that this is where they are.
Totally.
And when the FBI guys get there, they figure out that they're now involved. The Jigsaw is now after them.
Right.
There's folders with them that say like you're too close, take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're investigating the scene, I think like fires off a needle and just kills like a crime scene photographer, which was just like, what was her test exactly? Like, what was that?
But I
think that's more of a case of like, you know, your accomplice is making shitty traps.
Yeah, making shitty traps, and just there's going to be a little bit of collateral damage no matter how specific Jigsaw is. Like, I do love the idea of cleaning up a crime scene after Jigsaw and something else going off, whether you anticipated it or not. Poor girl just gets shot right through the cheek and goes down immediately.
It also felt a little bit like some of the later Friday the 13th movies where it's like, we got to have a kill every 3 pages.
Oh, there you go.
You know, we weren't sure if we're going to do this whole flashback thing. So like, we got to put a death in.
Yeah. 3 of the people in the traps also had the same lawyer too. This is where they put all that together, and he got everybody off of their charges too.
Yeah. And what I love is that while investigating, they open the door and find Billy, who's having a spa day. Because he's got all these little candles around him, listening to Enya, just, you know, finding his center, cherishing his life.
Right.
But they go in and find him, and there's a tape. It's like, hey, well, I know you guys are after me. I don't know how Jigsaw knew the names of the agents that were coming. I'm sure that'll be uncovered in the next one, because that was something also in that Darren in the Big Boss Man interview where he was like, they would catch us on some story stuff, then we'd fix it in the next movie.
Oh,
and I
there
feel like
you go.
That's totally, you know, on the Jigsaw message board. And I feel like that's totally what's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to come into play later. But that she's like, the Jigsaw's like, hey, your partner soon's going to take the life of an innocent man, and that your next step is critical. And then there's like, then the tape is like, she's like, what's that? And gets too close, and the saw, like the Billy puppet blows up.
Shrapnel in the face.
Her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She is out. She's not dead, but she is out of the picture. She's
out of the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if she'll show up in part 5. Shrapnel face.
So Strom, the FBI agent, is all pissed and goes to interrogate Jill. And this is where we get the backstory of Jill losing the baby and the awful drug addicts that are ruining society.
Yes. We get another dumb cut to Matthews trying to overtake the helper in black, but no dice. And we're just told, like, if these guys stay alive, then the helper will get to go free. I still didn't know who this person was at this point at all.
Yeah, it took me a bit to figure it out. But you learn that he is also wearing a trap.
Exactly.
That he's not out of the woods yet. There's a reason that he's keeping them alive. And that the door is rigged up Hoffman sees the door is rigged up and there are these two giant ice blocks above his head.
Right.
On a lever that they could, if the door opens, they're going to swing down and kill him.
Yeah. So, I mean, as soon as you see that and that the door is rigged up, you're like, man, I hope no one rushes through that door.
Yeah.
I hope no one kicks down this door.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be pretty shitty, but, people do that. But I would just hope that nobody would do that.
That no one would do. I mean, why would you ever just bust through a door?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Just we calmly, and that's certainly not telegraphing a constant problem a guy has.
Right.
In a way that isn't really building tension, but more just like, well, that's going to happen.
Exactly. This is the bit where we get more flashbacks of John Kramer building his initial stuff. He's making Billy. He's writing his first puzzles. He's downgrading his vocals on the recordings. I thought that was kind of cute for some reason. I don't know why.
What kills me about this whole thing is that it's a flashback within a flashback.
I was going to ask about that. Okay, yes.
It's already Jill like confronting him because he and the lawyer, and this was something that drove me nuts because you eventually start to piece together, you or the cops start to piece together. John is operating out of this building, the Gideon meatpacking plant or something.
Right.
Because there's G's everywhere. And then like he says, like above all these photos, it says the four walls make a home. And that was the headline of this thing. You've been investing in this guy 6 months and you didn't go like, I wonder what properties this man might own. Like you didn't do any sort of like financial research into this, where he could possibly be. No, it doesn't matter. We're just going to eventually think about it.
Yeah.
But she's flashing back to her confronting her and the lawyer, who was his business partner, confronting John, the lawyer, even telling John that, hey, we're in business together, making affordable housing for people. And the way you designed them is amazing. And immediately I'm thinking about, there's a Monty Python sketch about these people that are trying to get a tower of flats built. And this one guy thinks he's used to building abattoirs. And so he's like, this builds it like a slaughterhouse. Like, that's just this bit made into a horror movie.
That's amazing.
But I'm okay. So yeah, he was going to make these, but then he's like, no, I can't build affordable housing. That's bad for some reason. For
some reason. Yeah.
And that's when Jill kind of like realizes that, maybe this isn't good. And he's freaking out. There's this weird runner that doesn't really work the way they want it to, where when he's first showing her how great this building is, there's this tiny desk clock that apparently sealed the deal for him buying this building, that as long as the clock's involved, because the gears have been going for 300 years, and isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Okay, but then later, when he finally gets pissed off enough about what's going on, he breaks the clock.
Yeah.
All right.
Does that symbolize him, like, I don't know, making the official turn to Jigsaw?
Yeah, it does.
Until then, he was John.
Yeah, it didn't have any real weight to it because you just went, hey, look at this. This is important. No, it's not important. Oh, yeah. Okay. You didn't make it a real piece of anything.
Right.
That's when she's like, okay, well, I know I need to leave. But like, what happened to Cecil? And he's like, well, I taught Cecil a lesson to not do that. And then you get the flashback of him like tracking Cecil, or him recording the first Jigsaw thing. And then the very first Jigsaw trap.
I thought this trap was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It just in the, like, I don't know what I'm doing yet. This is my Batman Begins moment of I'm just kind of crappy at this. I'm just going to weld up like 10 knives and tell you that you have to voluntarily push your face through them.
Yeah.
It's so simple and dumb, but it is kind of like, if you're going to reverse engineer one of these giant traps, this is pretty simple and gruesome.
Simple ones are kind of the best ones. And yeah, there's he's got Cecil's hands like screwed to the chair.
Oh, yes.
And it's like blood's coming out and he's like, I've got a tool to help you escape. Jigsaw is there with him. He is no longer, this is before he started outsourcing his stuff to the puppet. But he's like, I've got a tool that'll help you, and pulls out this giant headpiece that has knives, almost like I don't know what, almost like the hand trap that the person had to go through in 2. But it's this like screen door of knives, basically. And he puts it in front of his face, and he's like, you're gonna make your face match your soul. You have to push your face through the knives, and that will press this button that will free your hands, and then you'll be able to go. And I like that immediately his whole grandiose thing is undercut by Cecil.
I'll tell you what I will do, though. I'll give you a tool to reclaim your life. Discard the vices that have so corrupted your soul.
I don't have a fucking soul.
But his whole like grandiose thing is like, oh shit, I assumed that you believed the same thing as I did. Nope. So he starts pushing his face through the knives. Do you think it would have been better or worse to like, just because you have to take this on faith, first of all, that what he says is going to happen.
Sure.
That the knives will in fact open all the way, and you'll be able, there's a button, there's like a lever in front of where the knives are that if you push your head against that will release you. Would it be better to go fast or slow? Because he goes slow.
I would go fast.
My initial thing is go fast, but I don't know if that's necessarily better.
But you're also terrified too.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, do I have to do this? Do I have to, like, you don't want to commit to going super fast, I suppose.
Lose. Like it's not good either way.
Right.
I just wonder if going fast would be better. But he doesn't get to find out because as he's slowly going through, the chair just falls apart.
Right. Which was fun.
Okay.
I like the idea of the trap falling apart.
Yeah. But you were on the cover of an engineering magazine.
Oh, that's true.
A chair just fell apart. Like, come on, man. Gears are easy, chairs are hard. That classic engineering phrase.
That's why I flunked out of engineering school. Yeah.
And Cecil's like, hey, fuck you, man. I'm going to fuck you up. And then lunges at John, and John just moves out of the way, and he falls into a bunch of razor wire that he also just had lying around.
I did exclaim out loud to that. Like, that was a rough one.
That was rough. Yeah.
Do you think that was part of the trap, or was that a happy Jigsaw accident?
I don't know. Like, was that going to be a trap? Was that like eventually going to be used for the other trap? Or like, why did he just have a whole bunch of razor wire?
Yeah. And did he purposely stand in front of it so that he would like, it doesn't matter. It was fun either way.
I mean, if it's Jigsaw, it seems like he's always got a backup plan. So it seemed like, well, I'll just put this here just in case. So
yeah, I can toss him in there.
Yeah.
So the first building that John bought is where he's holding the people hostage, which is the Gideon meatpacking plant. There's a trap rigged to the door, as we've discussed. Rig runs around in the hallway, sees the ID badges of the guys inside. What does he got to do? He's got to save these people because he is wired to save these people.
Yeah. Well, okay, let me ask you this. Are you, if you need to save someone, are you going to turn a knob? Or are you just going to bust in?
I'm going to kick the door in. Yeah, probably.
You got no time for knobs.
I mean, I would, now that I'm a little bit more along in my saving people journey, I tend to just sort of saunter in and just be like, hey guys.
Hey, what's up?
I'm here. Yeah. No fear. I'm here.
This is another case of, and this was true in 3 as well, where, and I think maybe a bit in 2, where it's like, look, I've learned nothing. Like this whole journey, I've learned absolutely nothing. So I'm just going to kick the door in rather than being like, okay, well, I've been tested. And this time they've really underlined that I've got to save everyone. I'm rushing into things.
Yep.
No, I better just keep doing that.
Better keep doing the same thing.
I'll show him. And sure enough, he busts in.
Yeah. The helper takes off his jacket to reveal this is where we see the device on his back. Flashback to tell us that he's the mouth sewn shut guy from the beginning. And we get a lot of just fast cuts here. Oh, and there's Jeff. We see Jeff from number 3. Skulking through the corridors. And this is where it just sort of comes together that like this is happening concurrent to part 3. The detective, Reagan, and Jeff are all like starting to converge. When the timer is up, they hit a button that gets released. Jeff slices. The detective comes up when Jeff is slicing Jigsaw's neck. Intercut with Rig comes barreling in, kicks the door down like a dummy.
Yep.
Matthew shoots him. Matthew has a gun at this point. I can't remember how.
Well, because
he's given a gun.
Yeah, Blank gives him a gun, and it's like, yeah, make your choice. For what?
For what's the choice?
He's not supposed to kill Hoffman. What's the choice?
Right.
And Hoffman is
maybe himself.
Or yeah. Well, no, because if he does, then that'll make the other guy die, which is apparently bad.
Right. That's true.
And I don't understand why he doesn't just shoot himself. He clearly wants to die. He doesn't care. It's not like, boy, this Hoffman guy, like, so I don't know why
I gotta look out for him.
But for reasons.
Matthew shoots Rig as Rig kicks in the door, who trips the door trap. And I did love this, but that just means that the 2 massive ice blocks above Matthew's heads come down and sandwich his head and explodes it in a giant fountain of blood. Great death scene.
Just recency bias because we watched not that long ago, but Made me think of the weight crushing in Final Destination 3.
Yes.
Which was a fantastic kill. So seeing that kind of element again, I was like, yes, this really is great effects. And you see like he's down on the ground after he'd been shot. Rig a shot. The Art Blank, the lawyer, is down on the ground. They're yelling at each other. You get the detective, the FBI agents, Strom busts in where the end part of 3 is happening. He shoots Jeff. So I guess that storyline is done, which is fine. Thankfully. I mean, I do not like Jeff, but there's still this missing girl, which was, I believe was teased earlier.
Oh, right.
Which will because the revelation is that Hoffman's chair does indeed go into the water and nothing happens. Hoffman's been in on it this whole time. He is Jigsaw's new, or has been his understudy, his acolyte.
We open in 2 nights. How's the understudy?
Amanda's too sick to go on. She's got bulletitis, having been shot. Right. But it was frustrating because, and I felt like you with this, because it's 2 people yelling at each other. The lawyer's like, you're being played. And Rick's like, don't reach for that. I'm going to shoot you. And it's adrenaline. Like it's understandable why this choice happened. It was frustrating to watch because Rig just like goes to reach for, or the lawyer goes to reach for something in a pocket and Rig shoots him. And it's a tape recorder saying like, oh, you fucked up. Yeah. Now these people are dead and you're an idiot, which what was the point of this test then? Like,
right. You know, yeah.
Then Hoffman, undoes all his stuff and then goes to where Strom has just killed those people and then locks Strom in the room with the corpses. Yeah. The tape that we hear Hoffman listening to at the beginning is after all of this has happened.
Right. Yeah. And this is where we learn that Jigsaw's test for Rig was to stop rushing into things.
Yep.
Stop kicking down doors. So this guy goes through 90 minutes of hell trying to save people because he rushes into rooms.
The concept of trying to quote unquote educate this guy into being just like him, like that's a neat thing.
It is, yeah.
But then you have this side thing of like, don't rush in places, and he just can't help. He hates doors. He hates these doors.
Why does he hate these doors? Get away from the doors.
That felt a little strange. And then it's again, because it's trap upon trap. Like, why did the lawyer have to go through yet another layer? Why did Hoffman have to go through not Hoffman? Why did Matthews have to go through yet another layer? For nothing. Like it,
because then you just become pawns for other people's lessons and traps and all that kind of stuff.
It kind of screws more with, because while I might have issue with some of Jigsaw's things up until this point, there was at least that whatever ethos he had still like had some kind of consistency to it. He kept testing Amanda, because even though I kept talking about how you can't fail the system, or the system can't fail, you can only fail the system, is that he would test Amanda when she thought he was failing the system.
Right.
These other people have not done anything like that, but yet he's still using them and involving them. Now, are we going to find out in the next movie or the next one, this was all Hoffman's doing, the Jigsaw, he's again subverting Jigsaw's whole ethos. But they changed Jigsaw's whole ethos as well, as to be more of like a more punishing reactionary viewpoint.
Right.
Underlined that rather than have that be kind of called into question. And then his last tape to Hoffman is like, well, you're not out of the woods yet. You have to be tested.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though he did everything you said and whatever. But as I teased before, there's a scene earlier where one of the FBI people sees Hoffman with a little like stuffed toy and is like,
boy or girl?
Girl.
I didn't know you were married.
I'm not. It's a short story, believe me.
Which I do like, because on one hand, that's like, well, yeah, so then just tell it. But on the other hand, that does tell you everything you need to know about, like, okay, yeah, you're not married. I get it. You're a cop.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah, of course.
But so Hoffman is in on it with Jigsaw, but is in trouble for some reason as well. So we'll find out what that is. We also learn that Hoffman is the one that wrote whatever letter that is to Amanda that we were wondering about.
Right, the one last time, yeah.
Which I was thinking about by making these so interconnected. It made me think of years ago when Oz was on. on HBO, and I was watching it, and the girl I was dating at the time was like, this is just a soap opera with stabbing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I feel like, because like at the end of like a Jason movie, I was like, oh, is Jason dead, or is he going to come back to kill someone? This one's like, I wonder what's in the note. I wonder what he wrote in the note. I can't wait to watch the next movie. And it's a little silly.
Who's the next paramour?
Yeah.
The next helper.
But whatever. It's an interesting approach. But yeah, this one, by changing hands to the writing hands, I feel like they kind of went astray from what it was previously. And I'm willing to kind of see what's going on. But like I said, I feel like they really went for, no, Jigsaw's a reactionary weirdo, 100%. And this was always in play. His traps were never meant to ever do anything to anyone other than just they cause suffering.
Dismember them.
I like a little bit more as a question, but that's how I mean, there's certainly more movies to come, but I felt that this one underlined, like, just took away that mystery a little bit and just went, no, he's a goof.
Yeah, told so much more, retconned him a little bit.
Yeah.
Stuff I didn't need to really know. But before we make our predictions for 5, let's honor the dead. Trevor, played by Kevin Rushton, head bludgeoned with hammer. Brenda, played by Serene Boylan, scalped and thrown through a mirror. Ivan Lansness, played by Marty Adams, drawn and quartered by chains. Rex, played by Ron Lee, impaled through major arteries. Police photographer, played by Joanne Boland, shot through the head with spike. Cecil Adams, played by Billy Otis, face sliced by kitchen knives, falls into razor wire. Jeff Denian, played by Angus McFadden, shot with handgun. Eric Matthews, played by Donnie Wahlberg, head smashed between 2 blocks of ice. Art Blank, played by Louis Fieria, shot in the head. Daniel Rigg, played by Lyric Bent, shot in the stomach. Favorite trap of this one?
Oh, this one's tough because like I said, that knife one, just like how simple it was, kind of like the needle trap.
Yeah.
The scalping trap was just brutal to watch. So I kind of like that because it was kind of absurd and also just like, oh, I can imagine how much that hurts. And as a bald gentleman, it was a little bit like, yeah, take that, hair people.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm probably going to go knife face just because it was so, I mean, it hadn't worked all the way. Actually, no. Yeah. No, I'm going to back that up or retract that. I'm going to go with eye pokey exploding limbs thing just because like it was ridiculous and it didn't do what it was supposed to do, claim to do. But I just like that whole sequence and watching the guy just be like, "You got this, buddy. Let's do eye number 2." And then
right.
Yeah.
That's a close second for me, but I'm going to go needle because of how absurd the precision would have to be to get a wound that can heal on one end, but will kill on the other end. That's so goofy, and I love that.
That seems like some kind of like ninjutsu trap or something like that.
Exactly.
Like that's
so that shows that a whole other skill set that John Kramer had that we're not really privy to. I enjoyed that one a lot. So predictions for 5, what they're gonna retcon. I mean, it's Hoffman's gonna be our guy now. I hope that we move forward with the story instead of another like fold in.
Yeah, we have to, because for a series that's all about like trying to move past, like suffer through the stuff to get away from your past. Like we spend so much time in flashbacks.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're going to see more flashbacks because
of course
you're not going to get rid of Tobin Bell and all this other stuff. My hope for the next one is we're going to revisit, like, where's that little girl? What's going on with we do have a missing girl here. Colette or something. Corbett is the little girl's
Corbett.
name. Okay. I'm hoping that now, because I was expecting so much of that for 4. So I was a little surprised that we didn't get to it. So I bet we see that in 5. And I'm not, because Jigsaw is dead. He's totally dead. Amanda, as far as we know, dead. I'm guessing Hoffman's still going to be behind a lot of this. That his like tests still involve him carrying on Jigsaw's work, because Jigsaw's last tape is like, the games are just beginning. Yeah. So he needs someone to carry that on. So I think Hoffman's still going to be behind a lot of this.
Hoffman will be, and then he'll have to start, grooming his own accomplices as well. So it'll just kind of like spiderweb out from
and
him.
it put a little Hoffman stank on the new traps. Like maybe he's
There
not
you
into
go.
the same stuff. You know?
What will he bring to the
and
traps?
that's what I bet we also in 5 has spent like, how did Hoffman get to be this guy? So we'll get some of that going. I do think this one did do a better job than 3 of having the concurrent timelines feel more connected. It is a mess plot wise of like the flashbacks within flashbacks. This guy's over here. This like some of that piecing that together was a little bit confusing, but it did feel like they all kind of mattered.
Sure.
And whereas in 3, it was like, well, we have what's going on over here, and then we have what's going on over here. Whereas these felt like they were influencing one another.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's still. I don't by any means mean to rank them, but I think I liked part 3 better than this one overall. But they were dealing with the same plot too, so it was just like another the other side of the knife right there. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's by having a like super interconnected series like this, you run into the same thing that like episodic TV has, where sometimes there are just some episodes that are moving pieces around. And I felt like that was a little bit what this one was. It was a lot of just like, here's Jigsaw's the way Jigsaw is, which is like, I'm with you. I don't think that's that interesting.
Sure.
More than we've already gotten. And then we've got to set this up to move forward rather than just being like a movie in and of itself.
Yep.
And I think it suffers a bit for that. So, and it is that it's kicking off a new trilogy. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm not stoked about where this is headed thus far.
Right.
But I'll see how it goes.
We're in it to the end though.
Yep.
And we'll be back in a couple of weeks for Saw Part 5. But until then, John, anything you would like to announce as we're at the end of the road tonight?
No, just the same stuff. John Alex Hate Stuff. Just in our 150th episode talking about the Batman. Yeah, John and Alex Hate Stuff. John with an H, Alex with 2 X's.
And if you like short original horror stories, check out Please Leave. Do that one every week. You get a new original creepy tale in your podcast machine. So check that out. And maybe leave us a review and a rating on this here show, too. I hear that helps with the old algorithm.
Yeah.
I always forget to remind people about that. So maybe leave us a little 5 stars only, please. If you don't like it, don't bother, 5
stars will put you in a saw trap.
Yeah, exactly. with 5 stars coming at you or something like that. We'll come up with some stupid reasoning for it.
You didn't like the podcast enough. I want to play a game.
Yeah, exactly. So drop us one of those guys, one of those little reviews or something. So, but until then, I hope you watch Saw 5 in the meantime. It's fun when people watch along with us. It's been great. A lot of people really like this series and are letting us know, which I really dig. So keep watching along with us, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk about Saw 5. Good night.
Good night.
This has been a Two Penguins media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and on Twitter at hurtabit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.